Hello guys, once again it's Matt, and today we have another video. Thank you all the members, all the patrons. Make sure to subscribe. We're trying to hit 50,000 subscribers, and let's get into it, guys. So this was actually posted like some days ago. I think it was like 2 days ago or 3 days ago, and I really wanted to make a video about it. I mean, of course, with the F14B and other crazy things happening right now, these kind of had a sidetrack on it, but I still wanted to cover nonetheless. And it's grouped vehicles. As you see over here, I read it and I will just, go over it a little bit quicker. But people are complaining, or not complaining, asking about it, about the grouping of vehicles that they are being deleted in some of the earlier tiers. And if they actually, are they going to do more of these, or what is going on? They need to group more, or they need to group less vehicles. And what I'm going to talk about is actually this, for example. We are in the game here, for example, the MiG-21, that you need to research the SMT, for example, but then you can go directly to the MiG-23M and just bypass the MiG-21 BIS, for example. And they are changing for some of the lower tiers ones, some specific ones, not gonna take a look too much on the tree, but still I wanted to talk about it nonetheless, right? So they basically say something that it's going to be controversial, man, what I'm going to say it here, because I kind of agree with them. They say that grouping vehicles actually make the game worse. Why? Because the stats of these vehicles normally are really bad, and it's difficult to have proper stats to actually implement stuff well. Another thing is that a lot of players just pass it over and basically don't ever play these vehicles. And this is a main thing about it, I think. And of course, you are wasting a part of the game nonetheless, right? A vehicle that it's very important for the tech tree, but you're just missing out. Of course, a clear example of this is the MiG-21 BIS, for example. It is the ultimate MiG-21. It is an aircraft that it is known for its power, and I mean, you will have basically the same climb rate as a MiG-23 MLD and F14B, man. Think about it. The performance of this aircraft is amazing in acceleration. With its 2-stage afterburner R25, it's just amazing. And a lot of people, you barely see this aircraft flying, because normally people fly the SMT and they just jump directly to the MiG-23, as I said. And I think this is a bad thing. Nonetheless, we have kind of a thing that we need to talk about it here, which is the grind. I understand that a lot of people don't want to actually research every single grouped vehicle that it is grouped right now, just due to the grind, man. It's already a lot of grind to grind an SMT, so why basically have to grind another MiG-21 that it's very similar to it, right? So it has kind of a balancing factor here and there. In one side, you have the stats of vehicles that are compromised, people that don't understand and don't learn how to use certain tiers and certain aircraft because they're jumping tiers, right? And also missing a part of the game. But at the same time, the grind is massive and it's not a very good thing. So you see how it's kind of a controversial thing. For me personally, I really think they should just overall change the way that everything is. I was actually trying to talk with my friends about it, and yeah, we came up with some ideas, but in a general sense, I think most of the people that like these vehicles and actually enjoy the matchmaking, like fly these matchmaking, like these BRs and stuff, you will notice why we want these grouped vehicles to not be a thing anymore. Another example that I really love to always talk about it is the MiG-15 BIS. Remember, I don't know if you guys remember, but the MiG-15 BIS was added a lot later than the normal Russian one, the German one, I mean. And it was added after the normal World War II German jets, right? Or props jets, It was basically one of the first fighters of these German Air Force, right? So basically a lot of players were used to flying Focke-Wulfs, even the Me-262, maybe the HE-162, and it would just jump for a MiG-15 with a completely redesigned aircraft, completely different, with completely different guns. It was just very different from anything else that these players saw. What happened, we can notice that in between my friends and I mean, or my clan back in the day, we had kind of a joke that German MiG pilots were really bad. They were just the worst MiG pilots out there. And why? Because people were actually jumping from these aircraft to these aircraft and having a massive learning curve to actually learn. But this is kind of, it's difficult to avoid it in this tech tree, for example. But the same thing happens in every single, not every single, I mean, there are examples that you can just pass it over, like, for example, two identical year twos, right? But there are some examples, like the MiG-21Bs that I was talking about it, that you miss a little bit of learning and a little bit of experience that you need to just properly go to the future of your tech tree without compromising your ability, or basically making a step up in the learning curve and not having to deal with such problematic targets or with an aircraft that you are not used to it. The MiG-21Bs, again, being the example here, it is a very a big jump from the MiG-21 SMT to the 23. Why? Because the SMT is flying 10.3s, man. It doesn't have R60Ms. It is a different aircraft than the Bs. You know, even though, yes, they are both MiG-21s, if you're going to just jump to the MiG-23, you will have not only a very complex and different aircraft to fly, but also new missiles, different missiles, and also a new BR, a very high BR of getting up tiers all the time and just facing the top tier of the game, right? So there is kind of like a reason that it would be good to the player to just play with the MiG-21Bs. It's basically the same that you have, but it's improved. You have better missiles and stuff. So play in a higher BR with it. Get used to it. Okay, you are used to fighting 11.0s. Okay, now you go for the MiG-23M with a different system and a different aircraft. So it's a step up. You understand? It's just not a very just big leap that you have to do. Of course, as I said, from case to case, this is neat. It need analyzing. You know, Yak 15s, for example, it's one that I don't see why you should just have to research the three of them to go to the Yak 23. But the MiG-21 is, I think it is one that it needs to be there. And you will see here and there some examples of that, you know. They're not normally in higher tiers, but the higher the tier it is, I think the less we have an actual argument to actually have that. You will see that most of the nations don't have it in the higher tiers. The MiG-21Bs, for example, it's only one of the only ones. But you can find these things on props, you can find these things on mini aircraft, you know, F6F, for example. I mean, it's a completely different BR, you know, it is quite the same aircraft, but it is different nonetheless. And I mean, come on, it's a 1.0 BR. It would be much better to be already fighting and learning the aircraft that you are already fighting in 4.3, for example, when you get to the first Corsair here, to actually be able to be prepared to fight them, you know. The F8F, for example, another great example here. I mean, you're going to jump to 6.3. Guess what? The next aircraft is 6.3 as well. So yeah, but then we have the problem, the grind. So will they actually make us actually grind more just because of that? I mean, there are some things that can be done here. Maybe, for example, if they don't want to do that, they can actually, if they want to do that, they can actually just make it so that it's not in a group. Basically, you are going to go to each vehicle like it is normally, but maybe the second vehicle like this, it has less of a research. Just like, for example, the F89 has, the D variant has less of a price than the F89B, but you have to buy the B first. It would be basically the same. The MiG-21 SMT, again in this example, would be the first one with the fully like heavy grind, and then you would just basically go for the MiG-21Bs with half the grind, for example, that you need to do. Half the price to train the crew to buy the aircraft, you know. It would make sense that the grind would be lower, and it would make people actually fly these aircraft more, and it would be the step up when it's needed. As I said again, it depends on situation, depends on aircraft. You can find multiple examples throughout the tech trees here, especially in lower tiers, but in higher tiers as well, you can see some of these stuff. But anyway, it is a problem that I think it needs addressing a little bit. It's not a major thing, but I wanted to make a video talking about it because I think it's a cool little subject to talk about it, okay? Anyway, let me know in the comments what you think about it. Of course, do you agree with me with the ungrouping of some of the vehicles, or you don't agree with it? If you agree with it, do you agree with a lowered grinding so that it would be a little bit easier to get the vehicles? What you think? Let me know in the comments, and I see you guys on the next one. Bye guys, see ya.